This is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and normally the pop-in Sebastian Romero. On this week's Weigh-In, we're going to talk about there's been some rumors circulating of a possible Mayweather Pacquiao rematch. So we'll circle and speculate on that, how that's going to look. And we want to talk about Alexander Usyk. And in terms of that, we're also going to be talking about that Josh Parker Fabio Wardley fight, because Alexander Usyk gets the winner of that. And without spoiling it, if you didn't see the fight, go ahead, spoil it for yourself, and then come on back, because that's going to be on the Weigh-In today. But we're going to cover those two big topics. And as you always know, whatever else comes up in the time of recording. So with that being said, that is this week's Weigh-In. So we jump right in this one. Mayweather Pacquiao, I think, do we understand, will the fight be different from the first time? Are we going to get maybe a better boxing Pacquiao? Because we know Mayweather still looks very tight in terms of boxing. We have seen a lot of good boxing Mayweather fights and a lot of good boxing Pacquiao. This is the interesting thing, is we got to see some Pacquiao this year, and the rhyme of reason in question that we got going on here is, will the current Pacquiao be enough to go up against the current Mayweather and win? That I think is going to be the interesting part. I think there's a good Pacquiao. I think if we get a little bit of a tighter boxing Pacquiao, because Pacquiao Barrios, as you all know, was a really good fight, we felt. And to be able to sit here and say, okay, he's going to be going up against Floyd Money Mayweather again, now that's interesting. So, where this may lead is the interesting part, and where it may go is even more interesting, because it's a Floyd Money Mayweather event. And, to have that, everybody knows you're going against Floyd Money Mayweather, you're gonna have to do some type of boxing to show yourself on the scorecard. Is this the time Pacquiao gets the win? Possibly. Enough to say that there isn't enough to know that this potential clashing could find more and more things different than the first time they fought. And I think in terms of that, I think Pacquiao can right his wrongs. I think Pacquiao could possibly come in and have a good boxing Pacquiao. It could be possible to get a good boxing Pacquiao over a huge boxing Mayweather. But the difference here is going to be who comes to who, in terms of that, because we know we have a really good boxing Pacquiao, right? So we all know that Pacquiao is a really good boxing Pacquiao. We know that much. And when we know that much, we know what can potentially come out of a good boxing Pacquiao. And I say that because we all know Pacquiao boxed very well against Barrios, so I felt was very well against Barrios. But you have to look at Pacquiao is still wanting to do very well. And the question is records going to count? If it's a non-exhibition, I think Pacquiao can seize the opportunity here. But a lot of what Mayweather's been scheduling is exhibition, so it may very well be an exhibition, and that'll be an interesting thing going on. That's a good thing to look forward to if they do get that set in stone. It's just rumored right now, but whether it's rumored or not, we might want another Mayweather Pacquiao. We might. In terms of the way, we want to see it. We want to see it. Another Mayweather Pacquiao, schedule it. We want to see it. That's a really good thing that we've talked about here, that we want to see it. Like I said, this year we've had some good scheduling for boxing. A lot of good things were scheduled in boxing. A lot of great things have been put on there. In terms of this year, we had a lot of great fights. We got Crawford Canelo. We got tons of Jake Paul. I know we're all like, oh well, we're still going to get more Jake. We got good fights all around from boxing. A lot of shocking good moments, and I think that in terms of going into next year with a Mayweather Pacquiao would be like, that's a good start to the year, to know that we have Mayweather Pacquiao coming again, and that's something that could be very interesting. The question we have to ask, that we don't, questions we're asking and that can't really be answered, is if whether it would be an exhibition or whether they would count those records. Would records count? Because if it's not an exhibition and records are going to count, that's a good thing in terms of Pacquiao, in terms of getting a win. Pacquiao, you get a win, it's gonna blemish that record. But is that the case? No. So is that the case? Possibly not. I say no because Mayweather hasn't really ever scheduled anything that's on his record. Everything's kind of an exhibition. So in terms of that, it kind of looks like it may be possibly just another exhibition. But even then, we still want to see Mayweather Pacquiao again. That'd be really good. To see Mayweather Pacquiao. I think that's a really good thing that they're trying to schedule, and that's something it's out there. To have a Mayweather Pacquiao, that's really good. Really good in terms of that. So if we run on over to our other topic, this Alexander Usyk, I'm just gonna be that plain and simple. Fabio Woodley, I saw him, great fight. Fabio Woodley does not have what it takes to beat Alexander Usyk. He won against Josh Parker. Parker. Not Josh, Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker. He won against Joseph Parker. And with that being said, I think that Fabio Wardley. I said Wardley. My bad. Wardley. Fabio. I think in terms of that, I think Fabio has the better, you know, I think Fabio is better than Joseph Parker. Obviously he won against Joseph Parker, but I don't think he beat Alexander Usyk. I don't think he beats Usyk. Wardley, I don't think beats Usyk. I think we have a really good Usyk right now who has done all the right things and has really shown he's on top. And I just don't think that Wardley has what it takes to beat Alexander. I just don't think that that is something that is in his cards right now, and I just don't think it's in the cards right now. And I could be wrong. I've been known to be wrong all the time. I know I'm known to be wrong, but in this gentle case here, I don't think so. I think that Alexander Usyk would absolutely walk through Fabio Wardley, and I think that that's something that'll happen. I think that that's something that's very clear and that's very possible. It's 100% possible. And in my mind, I believe that that Josh Parker, I mean not Josh Parker, Fabio Wardley does not have what it takes. He does not have what it takes to go through and beat Alexander Usyk. And in terms of even if Joseph Parker won that event, I don't even think Joseph Parker had what it took to win that. It was both times that I looked and I said, no, I think it's a Usyk fight, no matter who he was going to face, and I think that's because you look at Alexander Usyk right now, and he does not play around. The boxing we get from him is pure craftsmanship right now. I don't think it's going to be able to change what's coming. That's where we're gonna be able to get that done. I will say this, as a side jargon sidebar. I do apologize for the mispronunciations of Fabio Wardley and Joseph Parker. I keep saying Woodley and Josh. No, but I will say that. But if we get back on task here, even amidst that, you look at some of that stuff and you understand that the story is still the same here. I think that Alexander Usyk has gotten himself to a peaking point right now where he's really good, and I think in terms of that, I think that all shows that there are really good stuff. But when you get that high, when you knock off a Fury and you do stuff like that, it really does tell you something. And I think there are all good things from a lot of that, really good things. But in terms of all those good things, I think that it's in the way of. I think it's in the best consumption, the best assumption, the best prediction that Usyk is is in very well far terms from being stopped. I don't think Fabio Wardley is going to stop Usyk. I just don't think he has what it takes. I don't think he's in any chance. Now, there is a downside. Like I always say, there is a flip side. Like we learned from Tank Davis, Lamont Roach. If not Tyrone, man, look at me. If Alexander Usyk, think about this. If Alexander Usyk does not take that fight serious, I believe he can be beat. I believe anybody that doesn't take a boxing fight serious can be beat, and we learned that. They could be drawn against, for sure. Beat, I maybe, but I firmly believe they can be beat. But statistically speaking, it's likely to more of a. It's likely more to a draw. For a draw to happen. So, in most cases, in terms, the draw is more likely. But this is the thing: if you don't take something serious, you could be beat. So, I think and there's no, lately we have not seen Usyk not, go and not take a fight seriously. But you say some of these guys get up there and they think they can firmly beat somebody, and then they say, "Well, I don't need to do this and that." But when you don't do the this and that, you change a lot of things, and changing the this and that just it lessens the chance for you to win your fight. You got to look at every opponent, regardless of what they can and can't do, and say, "Hey, I got to train the same. I got to beat this guy. I want to beat him. I want to make sure that in most cases I win." And that's going to be staying light, staying fast, and quick on your feet, and not deciding, "Hey, I can beat this guy. I don't need to really stay sharp." That's the kind of word we would use here. Stay sharp. And when you don't stay sharp, in most cases, you end up in this category of, okay, I didn't take it serious. And then you almost put yourself in that category plus the category of getting a loss. Then you put yourself in the category of a draw, because most cases than most, it's a draw. But if you get beat because you didn't take it serious. So we did a lot of that. I think if Usyk brings his best self against Fabio Wardley, I think it's very well the case that he will win the fight. I firmly believe that. Do I think it'll be a knockout? I don't know that much, because I haven't seen so much of Fabio. I've only seen one fight Fabio. And if I've only seen one fight Fabio, I don't want to say whether Fabio will or won't get knocked out. I need to see like 5-6 fights of somebody. Then I can understand the tendencies and understand, how they can hold up against certain guys. But with that being said, I still think it's a Usyk win. It's a Usyk win for that, whenever they schedule it at, because Usyk was supposed to get the winner of Joseph Parker and Fabio Wardley. So that's gonna be interesting all the way. That's gonna be an interesting one. I think it's gonna be Usyk win all the way, but I can always be wrong. We can always be surprised here. In terms of that, as we get closer, as you all know, we at the end of the month now. We are days away from Jake Paul, Tank Davis. We days away from that. I mean, I say days, but really we're not days. I should kind of put it in a better sense, not lead it wrong. We're, we're, what I mean by that is we're days away from the month of the fight. So we're days away from November. I should clarify what I mean by that. We're days away from November, and that fight taking place in November, and it's going to be great. Amidst it being switched from no longer Georgia to now in Florida, it doesn't matter. Either way, we're going to get a good fight, and it's going to be interesting in terms of everything. And I think it's going to be real great to see what comes of that, because that's going to be a really good event coming out. Going to be really good, but I'm telling you, it's just really good in terms of boxing. I think they did really good in scheduling this year. I give Dana White some credit, because he was with his partner over at where I think they call it. I think they're trying to call it Zuffer Boxing. His partner over at Zuffer Boxing. And we're gonna say that because we have continuously not been able to pronounce the name of his partner, and to further not butcher another name, we're just gonna say Zuffer Boxing. Dana White and his partner. They did really good giving us that Terrence Crawford Canelo. So we're very proud of seeing that. So if they could take that manifest that they gave us and bring better fights next year. I'm not saying better because it don't get much better than that, but I mean bigger on the same magnitude as that. If they can bring us that and Dana continues that, then we're going to be open arms to him in this boxing community, because if you're just in not even a year yet and you're giving us fights like that, who knows what you're going to build for the future. And I say that because who would have ever thought we would have get a Terrence Crawford Canelo? And we almost had, for that fight, we almost had a Jake Paul Canelo. So now we're talking, so if Dana's going to be scheduling like that and we can get a Jake Paul in something, although we all know Jake Paul and Dana White, I don't know, they used to not get along, you know, but if Dana White could schedule a Jake Paul fight and then, for instance, Jake gets beat, man, that gives Dana the bragging rights. So that's kind of something, there. But let's more than alone see Alexander Usyk get some stuff scheduled. If we're not close on this Mayweather Pacquiao, let's get close on it. Let's schedule Mayweather Pacquiao. I want to see Mayweather Pacquiao. I think it's the best thing to see Mayweather Pacquiao. We should all want to see Mayweather Pacquiao. And, all that stuff with Mayweather Pacquiao. I think that's going to be good. If we can get Mayweather Pacquiao wherever Mayweather wants it, that Vegas, or that Miami, or that Florida, wherever Mayweather can get that Pacquiao fight, let's get it. Let's get it. I think that'll be really good in terms of that. So there's a lot of good stuff coming out of here. A lot of good coming from the scheduling of just in general of boxing and what next year could look really good with. And then, I know this ain't really boxing, but we got that UFC White House event that we get to look forward to. So that looked good. So it is, in terms of Dana and combat sports, regardless of how everybody feels about anything else revolving other than the sport itself, I think more than most would get that. My point is, it's monumental to have any event at the White House, regardless of how you feel about your social or political status. That has nothing to do with this. Any event at the White House is really good because, in terms, I want to see UFC and boxing grow. I want to see them get to do things they never got to do, as big fights like that where they're on a White House lawn. And I get Dana might have lined up for UFC to get it first. It doesn't matter who gets it first, who gets it. It matters that it happens so that we can have more of a common thing in places like that. And it's not about just where it is. It's about the fact that, okay, you're having stuff outside. How many more stuff can we do in places like that where you're going to maybe a college campus and lining up a boxing event in the middle of a campus, or you're going to, I liked how we got a Times Square this year with the fatal, I think it was the Fatal Fury or whatever, something like that they called it. We got a Times Square boxing event. So, we're getting a lot of stuff, and I understand, for some of us, the wrestlers, they're like, oh, we've been wrestling in Times Square for a while. Yes, they've been wrestling in Times Square for some time. Beat the Street's been doing that. But in terms of that, now what we want to see is, okay, like wrestling, get boxing on a rooftop. The problem is get a really good rooftop that can withstand the structure of a ring, and let's get boxing on a rooftop, right? Like a rooftop boxing. You could have a helicopter flying around for a nice aerial shot. Get a drone, but more than likely they'll use a drone. But you could get a lot of good stuff going. Rooftop boxing, right? Some rooftop boxing. I think in terms of, like I said, they're opening up a lot of these fights in other countries. We're having some of that happen. That I think we got to do a little more, line it up, because the different atmospheres will make the fights different, and it brings an edge, to go somewhere and maybe it's hotter or it's colder, and you have a boxing event, I think I kind of like that. I know some don't always agree with me on that, but I think it's really good to have that, to really have that stuff, to really have good stuff like that, and to do all of that. And I think it's I think it's fairly interesting in terms of that, and I think that's really good. That's a really good thing, and I think in terms of that, that's really good. And what to have something like that going on would be great. So, obviously the complications of having rooftop boxing. We all know boxing rings are heavy. So, whether that may or may not happen is, everything can always be a living dream. Like I say, it can always be a dream, but we may never know what may or may not happen. But you know, as long as we're continuing to do some of the same things, I think in terms of that we can get there. But let's the small steps. Let's get something on the White House done. Let's get some more good schedule in boxing. There's a lot of stuff going really good with that, and I think in terms of that, that's a really good thing. In terms of opportunity that is being partaken, and a lot of that stuff that is that is being really good. And in terms of that, what is really done a lot of that stuff, and what is doing a lot of that stuff, because it's good. It's good in terms of everything. I think it's good in terms of all the stuff that has been done and all the stuff that has not. To be able to have new heights for the sport of boxing, which had Times Square, the sport of UFC, and getting good things. I would like to see every combat sport get themselves in Times Square. Let's all check off the Times Square off the bucket list. We got boxing. Let's get some. If we haven't already had UFC, let's get some UFC in Times Square. Let's get. Let's and then now you kind of keep checking off the stuff, because it's good to have events like that. Um, you know, Obviously when the boxing event in Times Square, they weren't really it seemed like they weren't really charging for tickets, and I understand why you wouldn't, but you got to you got to make money here. It's boxing. You got to charge for tickets. So some stuff we have to kind of do here, that we got to you still got to make same money, because you're not going to make money from them. We're not going to get a lot of Times Square events, but that was a good boxing event that was going on there. Rolly Romero shocked us all and beat Ryan Garcia. So if you didn't see that, you can always go and see it, but pretty good, pretty good boxing event that was happening there, and that was a really good thing. So it's stuff like that I say is really good, in terms of boxing, and in terms of all of that. There's really good stuff that happens when you have a good old event in Times Square like that. When you have a good Times Square boxing card, but I think in terms of it, like I said, Alexander Usyk. In terms of a lot of that, you have a good Alexander Usyk fight going to come up. I think Fabio's not going to. I think if we can get this Mayweather Pacquiao, we got that coming up. I think in terms of the build of next year is really good. I think in terms of how they schedule this White House event, I think that's going to probably schedule itself really well, because the way Dana White has been scheduling a lot of UFC right now is looking really good. We're seeing a lot of good fights. If many don't agree with me, a lot of these cards you're seeing more TKO submission. You're seeing more finishes instead of it going to the judges' scorecard, and I like those, because that means that it's guys are getting after it. Guys are getting after it. Guys are really getting after it, and I think that's a good thing. I we would love to still see if it comes out, if John Jones gets on that White House card, if that is any truth to that. If that comes out, that would be great. In terms of who gets on what would be really great. And I think in terms of it'd be really great. But you look in terms of what Dana White's been doing, and when he first got into this boxing business, we were optimistic. We said, nah, like they're saying, if he pays them like he does the UFC, they're not going to like it. We made that comment, but you scheduled he picked himself up after what happened. He did some good stuff. He made up for it. He got us Crawford Canelo. As many may say, well, was that really Dana? Well, Dana was there in the press conferences, holding him back. That means he's involved. Dana gets some credit here that he got us Canelo Crawford. So he gets some points. We give credit where it's due here, and we're going to give Dana White some credit. He got Canelo Crawford set, and I think that was a good thing. He was able to get that rolling. So, that's good for Dana. Now the next best thing we need is him to continue that good boxing stuff and continue that good scheduling of the UFC, the good fights we want to see, and don't give up on that because you're doing good. Don't break the pattern because if we keep getting good stuff, it's going to grow the sport. When you see potential clashings like that, we're going to grow both sports. So for people that already aren't watching one versus another, it's going to grow both of them. So that's the good part about that is that I think that this really good scheduling has done a really good thing in terms of both sports, and I think it's going to continue doing good things because of how good these matches are getting. That Canelo Crawford was, man, that was great. That was great. If you didn't see Canelo Crawford, that was great scheduling, And now we got Alexander Usyk lining himself up another fight, and then we got Mayweather Pacquiao possibly in the works. What? Hey, if we get a Mayweather Pacquiao fight, it's rumored, so it's a rumor, so it's not no confirmed yet. But I know I don't like to break down the rumors, but when it's that big of a Mayweather Pacquiao, you got to get out here and say, hey, this is something good to start speaking. Now we might get a Mayweather Pacquiao going on, and that's a really good thing to have Mayweather Pacquiao. Come on, Mayweather Pacquiao. I can't be the only one that looks and says if we're gonna get Mayweather Pacquiao, that is gonna be really good, right? Like get the hands moving, like Mayweather Pacquiao, all right. And I think that, but they're in terms of some good stuff. I mean, we got to see Tank Davis. Definitely, we're gonna see Tank Davis step in the ring against Jake Paul. Who would have ever thought that? So we got a lot of good stuff. That just it's the the long road forward is looking really good. The long road forward is looking really good, and that's what I would say. That road forward is looking good because we got a lot of good stuff going, and as long as they continue on this path, it's gonna keep looking good. And I think in terms of that, that's really good. And now that we have this Zuffer boxing, because I brought up Zuffer boxing, that means now we got boxing heading over to Paramount Plus, which means we're gonna get boxing events on Paramount. Plus, we're gonna get UFC fights, woo, and still get our ESPN prelim. And they're eliminating pay per view at this point. It's looking like pay per view is going to be eliminated. Pay per view is going to be eliminated. You know how much more that's better for us fans just to get one subscription, and then now we get to see all the fights. And I get what everybody's going to say. Days In has kind of already been like that. Hey, there was the zone, and you're right, there was the zone, and the zone was like that, and everybody else is coming late. But to have a big platform, and I'm not saying the zone isn't big. I'm not saying that at all. But to have somebody have a company like Paramount that has made tons of movies, tons of things like Paramount to say, hey, Amazon's getting in the business. I want in the business, right? Like, ah, real interesting, real interesting, real interesting in terms of it's a real interesting thing that in terms of that all of that is going to be that all of that is going to be in the party. Yeah, that's a really good thing in terms of like everything to be like really good that we're having a lot of that. So I would like to say pay per view is dying out, but is that true? No, no, not really. No, not really. But I would like to say that there's a lot of good things going on with all of that, and it's just like that's a really good thing that's going to be going on, and I think that's there's nothing less than be great than that, to see a fight like that, get it done, like that, to get it like that is just really good. So I think that's a really good in terms of that. So I think there's really good with that. We got good scheduling happening. There's nothing great better than that. And I think in terms of all of that, that's a really good thing. And that will always be a good thing to have all of that going on to really see most of that getting it done and all of that. So I think Dana White has done a great thing. I think Alexander Usyk, back to this Alexander Usyk, I think he's going to beat Fabio Wardley. Um, I think it would be really good to see another Mayweather Pacquiao. It'd be even better if it was not an exhibition and records were counting. That would be a great thing. But we'll see. We'll see. Nonetheless, we are drawing into the end of this episode. yet another epi of the Weigh-In Podcast. And this is just yet another epi for the Weigh-In. So this is a really good thing. I continue to bring you guys these, and we're I give it to you guys like this. We are in October, November, December, so we are 2 months left, and we would have completed a full 365-day, a full 350. We will have completed a full 52-week, 2 episodes a week recording schedule for the Weigh-In, where we would have posted a video every week for 2 weeks throughout the whole year of 2025, which is we've seen some growth in the channel in that time. We've seen great things, and that is the thing that is so real to have had happen. So with that being said, this is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sebastian Romero, and we'll see you on Thursday's episode. Weigh-In out.
The Weigh-In, where stories ignite.